Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Chatting with Coach. And this week I'm talking about why triathlon is the world's greatest sport. And I don't even need notes for this one. I know I can talk about this till the cows come home. I'm going to try and keep it around about the hour mark. I am under a bit of a time pressure actually, so it may not be the full hour this week. But I want to share why I firmly believe that triathlon is the best sport to sort of compete in, being in sort of the space of, but also the single greatest way to get fit and to look after your health. Now, let's start and zoom out a little bit. If you went and you had a checkup with a doctor, they said, what do you do for exercise? And they said, I swim, I cycle, I run, I lift weights, and I look after what I eat. They'd go 10 out of 10. Full marks, no notes. But as soon as we attach this title of triathlon or triathlete to this, it starts to feel a bit more intimidating to people. And by people, I'm generally talking about those who would be considering sort of doing these sports. And it's a bit of a shame because people associate triathlon with people doing Ironman events. They associate it with people who are fitness addicts who take it really extreme. Look, a triathlon can be as easy or as intense as you want it to be, as can your involvement in the sport. Now, you could be someone who can swim badly, who can ride a bike just about, and who can walk. And you can complete a triathlon. You could go along to a local super sprint event. It could be a swim in a pool, where you're just doing breaststroke. You could ride around for 15 minutes on a bike, and then you could walk 2.5 kilometers to complete the event. There you go, have a medal, shake your hand, well done, you're a triathlete. On the other hand, you could be someone who is inspired by Ironman, the brand. And you could say, you know, I am going to swim 3,800 meters in cold water. I'm then going to ride for 180 kilometers over mountainous terrain. And after that, I'm just going to knock out a casual marathon at the end, okay? These are two people at the complete opposite ends of the fitness spectrum, but they can both enjoy triathlon. And there is a sort of a perception among people that longer is better, bigger is better. And so on the one hand, you have people who are sort of curious. They think, oh, maybe I could do something like that. You know, these go try events that are held around the country that are really sort of very easy and meant to be a real entry point for triathlon. In fact, I haven't heard about them this year. I imagine the programme's still going. If not, there'll be plenty of little shorter races out there. We can go along and you can turn that. But they think, oh, you know, they're perfectly capable of that. But the idea of the term triathlon sort of puts them off. And equally, you have other people at the opposite end of the sport, people who are all about the Ironman, the full distance, wanting to push super hard all the time. And they perhaps wouldn't consider anything shorter either. So you end up with this real tilt towards the longer stuff, the more intense stuff. But it really doesn't have to be that way. Now, personally, partly due to sort of my physiology and my experience and just my strengths and weaknesses, I actually prefer the shorter stuff. I'm better at it. The longer stuff, yeah, I've done Ironman, I've done 70.3s, lots of 70.3s. You know, and I enjoy those, but equally I get more enjoyment of going under 20 minutes on the 5K of a sprint triathlon and coming really towards the point end of my age group than sort of throwing my hat in the ring at the longer stuff, which I'm just not quite as good at. So, you know, there's no real right or wrong answers. If somebody only ever wants to do sprint, that's absolutely fine. If anybody only ever wants to do long distance stuff, okay, that's absolutely fine. But these all fall under the sort of the broad scope of triathlon. And, you know, it can encompass all of these. And there are very few people that I've met, I could probably count them on one hand, normally people who suffer from sort of quite nasty disabilities, who wouldn't be able to complete a triathlon if they put their mind to it, okay? Now, there are some people who would definitely be looking to walk the run. And again, that's not something you want to do for anything over 5K. But if they wanted to do the training, they wanted to do this, and yes, they have a metal plate in their ankle that stops them from running, but they can still complete that event, then all power to them to go out and do that. And on the subject, actually, something else that's nice about triathlon is there is always something else to aim for. There's always something else to do. There's always a different variation. Now, you have your triathlon. It starts with a swim, followed by a bike, followed by a run, okay? If you hate swimming, or you can't swim, then, or you're just really bad at swimming, then you could do a duathlon. Run, bike, run. If you can't run, you can aqua bike. You can swim, then you can cycle. If you don't have a bike, or you're rubbish on the bike, swim and then run. That's an aquathlon. Okay, so you have all these different variations of the sport that people can get involved with, and this is why British Triathlon talks about multi-sport. It's not simply swim, bike, run. Of course, triathlon for me is far and away the greatest. I feel, I mean, I've done duathlons, and you don't feel that same sense of accomplishment if you haven't dragged yourself out of a lake. I'm sorry, or the sea for that matter. I just feel there's something so special about the swim that for me, I really notice that it missing. And to be fair, I've never done an aqua bike. I've never done an aquathlon. At least have I done an aquathlon? I might have done. And I have done an aquathlon, I have. And if I feel really that there's just between the different distances, because within all of those different disciplines, you have different distances. So you could have a sprint duathlon, which is 2.5 kilometre run, 20k bike, and then a 5k run at the end. Or you could have an ultra distance duathlon, which could be, I think, the London Duathlon used to be, I think they've stopped doing it now, very sadly. Just the event, that is, not the distance. It used to be a 10k run. No, it was a half marathon, followed by a 90 kilometre bike, I want to say. It could be longer, and then I think it might have even been another half marathon at the end. I'm struggling to remember now, probably should have checked that. But it can be as hard or as easy as you want it to be. If you find that you get real gratification for going longer, then again, there are a lot of longer aqua bikes, longer duathlons, longer aquathlons are out there for you to do. It's just the scope is enormous. And within that, you've got different events that you can go to. And you could even look at swim run, probably I should have added as well, where you're swimming and running, often from sort of island to island around sort of fjords. It's very popular in Northern Europe. I think they also have some in the Lake District in the UK. These are just sort of fantastic ways for you to explore different events around the country. Again, you can do the brutal triathlon. I'm pretty sure that's still going. That involves a run-up Snowdonia at the end. You can do one that's on the flat. You can do one that is sort of the I think it's the Bude Sea triathlon. So Bude Surf triathlon, I think it is, which is held in sort of quite rough sea waters. You can travel abroad. I've been to South Africa for the Ironman World Championships. There are all sorts of courses out there. There are all sorts of events out there for everyone to get their stuck into. There's always variety. There are extreme triathlons if you really want to take it to the next level. The Norseman was this weekend just gone, which I think is if not one of the original extreme triathlons. And it is 3.8 kilometres in freezing cold water in a Norwegian fjord with I was going to say jellyfish. I think it might actually be fed in by the sea, which you explain the jellyfish. I could be getting mixed up with another event. Could be Kelpman, I'm thinking of actually, which is up in Scotland. Followed by a 180 kilometre ride over sort of the mountains, and then a run straight up a mountain at the end. A marathon run finishing on a mountain. I mean, there's something there to keep you occupied for a very long time if you want to stick with the sport. It encompasses every element of health. I mean, you've got swimming, which in itself is a bit of a survival instinct, really, isn't it? It's a life skill to be able to swim well. Again, cycling, it's a fantastic way to keep fit. There's so much you can do on a bike, so many places you can go. And then the running, you've got that like impact loading, which is important for our joints. But you can enjoy the running without having to run so many times a week as we can with like just do it if you just focus on running. And that will become a bit boring. It might start to overload our body a little bit. Okay, you have all this variety, all this interest spread out. And it's very hard to be bored as a triathlete. There is so much to do. So what I'm going to do now, that I've waxed lyrical about it, is I'm going to talk to you about the different what's the word I'm looking for? All the different sports. And I'm going to be looking at sort of the swim, the cycle, and the run in isolation, what they look like, the benefits for us, and sort of how you can enjoy them, how you can develop in them, to give you a real scope, a real idea into how it is that you can actually get into the sport of triathlon, what's actually involved, what it looks like, the sort of the potential out there, different things that you can do that can be interesting to you. So to start with, look at the swim. Now, most triathletes will swim freestyle or front crawl, as we know in the UK often. And the reason for this is that it's the fastest stroke. Okay, it's because of the alternating arm action, left arm, right arm, left arm, right arm. Okay, that is a lot quicker than if we're doing breaststroke, because one of our arms is always moving and we're always putting ourselves through the water. Whereas with breaststroke, we have the kick, a bit of a glide, a pull, and a kick, a glide, a pull. Okay, and that is really sort of, it's a slow way to move, as butterfly is the second slowest stroke. So if you're interested, the order of speed in strokes, it goes, well, if you were to take somebody who's equally good at each stroke, freestyle, front crawl, backstroke, because they have the alternating arm actions, followed by butterfly, followed by breaststroke. So yes, you can absolutely do breaststroking in triathlon. I know lots of people who do. When I started out in the sport and I was really nervous and unsure in cold water, I would get really cold. Yeah, I'd sort of have little minor panic attacks, and because I didn't do enough training in open water, I just sort of did it when I was racing for the most part. And I would go do a little bit of breaststroke. And even now, when I'm a pretty handy freestyler, I would occasionally throw in a little bit of breaststroke, just if I can't see where it is I'm supposed to be swimming. So I can get my head out of the water, look, there's the boy over there, and then go back to freestyle. But most will learn to swim freestyle. And that in itself is a huge learning curve, because when you're trying to learn freestyle, you have to think about your breathing, you have to think about your body position, you have to think about what your arms are doing, your legs, you've got the foreface to the stroke, the hand entry, the catch, the pull, the arm recovery. We have, we sort of build up our core strength to make sure that we're efficient swimmers. We have, there's sort of the mind games, not mind games, that water confidence that we build, where, we get okay with being in deep water and then cold water and then cold deep water, and it doesn't faze us. And we can go on this real journey of sort of building our confidence and building our sense of self. And it can be pretty slow going, but the beauty of it is the journey. It's going from getting into the leisure centre pool, feeling a little bit cold, nervous, self-conscious, to confidently getting into running into a cold lake for an event and diving in and starting your swim. Okay, this is the journey you can look forward to if you take up triathlon. You can swim, and many do, with swim squads. So you can do turn up at an arranged date that a coach will be running a session. Some of them also, they have it without coaches, they'll just follow this, or they all follow the same set, and you have that camaraderie. You'll have other people with you, you'll make friends, you'll have jokes at the end of the lane, you sort of crack a few jokes. You're doing this set together. You have the feedback hopefully from the coach who'll be helping correct you on your stroke so you can improve. There is an enormous amount of sort of camaraderie that can come from this, these group sessions. And if somebody's never tried one, I fully encourage you to do so. And additionally, on top of this, You have, of course, your sort of solo swims that you do. They're very, I don't recommend that somebody only ever swims in a group. I used to coach a session on Monday evenings. It used to drive me a bit potty because you'd have people who turn up and I'd say, oh, you want to make sure that you're doing this in your training. You go, oh no, this is the only time I swim all week. You know, you do need to do some swimming in your own time. So you work on your own strengths and your own weaknesses, as well as open water swimming. But yes, solo pool sessions are still very important. And you can work on your technique with different swim toys, so you can get fins that you put on your feet to give you extra propulsion and allow you to be able to propel yourself with your kick, so your arm can focus on some sort of technical drill that you're doing to help improve an aspect of your stroke. You can also use hand paddles, which you stick on your hands, which increase the surface area around your hands, which improve the amount of water you move with each stroke, improves the strength in your arms, in your back, in your shoulders, from that overload perspective. You can get pull buoys, which are, you know, little foam bits that you can stick between your legs, and they lift your legs up so you don't have to kick, so you can focus simply on your arms. There are all these other sort of niche bits that I won't touch on, such as bands around the ankles and that you can look into if you want to get really advanced to help improve your stroke. You swim different intervals, follow different swim sets. Yes, getting in the pool and just swimming up and down for sort of 20 minutes non-stop is pretty boring most of the time. You know, we need to mix the sessions up. We need to keep them interesting. We need to make sure that we're still improving. Okay, sprints, VO2 efforts. Okay, we are looking at doing technique work. We're looking at doing some open water preparation work. There's so much that is available to us in the pool, because I mean, one of the things that's nice about swimming is that if you look at the very top end cyclists, you go, oh well, yeah, but they've got all these bikes, they've got all this kit, they've got the team cars, they're pros, it's completely different for them. The only difference between you and an Olympic swimmer is your fitness in the pool. There is very little that we can do to influence our swim speed other than just get fitter, just get better in the water. And as such, the ceiling for improvement is really quite high. Now, I'm not suggesting that you are not an Olympic swimmer because you're not trying hard enough, okay? Those who are Olympic swimmers have normally been training in the pool 6-7 times a week, if not more, sometimes up to 10 or 12 times a week for the last 10 years. Okay, I'm not suggesting that, you know, that you are lazy, which is why you're not on the Olympics. That is not what I'm suggesting at all. But with your 2 or 3 swims a week, you can get a lot closer to that Olympic level in the pool than somebody would be able to on the bike or on the run. Simply because there's less equipment, there's less technology involved. Now, of course, the quality of the training that you're doing, how you apply yourself, all of this is super important. But I've had people say, oh, it's all well and good that you say that people learn to swim properly without a pool buoy, but I just can't learn, it doesn't work for me. It's like, no, unless you have some kind of mobility, motor issue, you can definitely improve. The only thing that's stopping you from being better in the pool is you, really, and which is both exciting and slightly humbling at the same time, because I'm a decent enough swimmer, but I look at people who are so far ahead of me in the water, I just think, like, how am I gonna catch up with them? You know, some people, they are just naturally inclined to it. I'm never going to be as good a swimmer as somebody who's been swimming for the last 30 years of their life. Let's be honest, you know, at a very high level. You know, I'm as far as triathletes go, like, I'm a pretty strong swimmer, but I will never be within that top 5%, in the same way I'll never be in the top 5% of the run or of the bike. But once we have kind of, I mean, not that anybody ever masters the pool, but once we build up our strength, our endurance, our technique in the pool, as we can knock out these longer and longer swims, we can then go into open water. And swimming in open water, it sounds really intimidating, but really it's an absolute treat. Because when you are in a wetsuit in open water, and you just lie on your back and you feel the water just gently rocking you, getting up at the sky and the clouds and the birds flying above you, and your ears are submerged under the water. It is the most peaceful place to be. It really is something. I recommend, of course, you do this close to the shore to start with, but it is impossible to sink in a wetsuit. Okay, you try swimming under the water in a wetsuit and you come straight back up again. So for as long as you're wearing a wetsuit, it is very difficult for you to get yourself into trouble. Of course, not saying that it doesn't happen. Unfortunately, there are a number of stories of people each year, unfortunately, who do die during a triathlon swim. But in every instance, at least I can remember, it's been due to an unrelated medical issue. They sort of have a cardiac arrest or some kind of a medical episode where they lose consciousness. And when you have somebody wearing a black wetsuit in open water, it can be very hard for anyone to spot them in time and get to them to be able to provide resuscitation in time, unfortunately. However, that it's a good reason to get your heart checked out if you are in any way unsure. That being said, it really is quite a safe place to be open water. It can definitely feel intimidating, and I think every single open water swimmer has a moment where they feel uncomfortable in the water. I mean, they'd be a little bit mad if they didn't. We're not meant to be an ocean-bound species, are we? It's not our natural habitat to swim. And in fact, Lucy Charles-Barclay, arguably the greatest swimmer in the sport of triathlon, for now at least, she says that one of the things that motivates her to swim so fast is she wants to get out of the sea as fast as she can because she doesn't really enjoy being there. So, it's very, it's okay to feel a little anxious from time to time. It's absolutely fine. But the more time you spend in the water, the more confident and comfortable you will get. And you hear people talk about the mental health benefits of cold water swimming. Now, I think an element of that is the cold water element. It's that endorphin rush that people get when they get in the cold water. I think it's very powerful, and I think it's similar to the feeling that we get after a hard swim, but they just get in the water when it's about 3 or 4 degrees in nothing but their bathing costume, and they'll squeal for about a minute or two and then they get out. But fair enough. It's not for me, but if it works for them, it works for them. And I think that's just part of it's the cold water element. I think part of it is just being in water, in nature, and I think that we can it's so important for our well-being, sort of spending some time in open water. I always feel an awful lot better when I've been out into the open water, and it really scared me the first time. I mean, my first open water swim, I remember I walked to the edge of a lake, and I'd read, at this point I'd been sort of doing triathlon training for 7-8 months, if not a little bit longer. Read so much about it, done all my research. And I was there in my brand new wetsuit. It was May, it was cold. I remember standing at the side of the lake, just feeling so confident on the way there. This is it, I'm going to be an open water swimmer. I remember standing there at the edge of the lake, just me and my wetsuit and my goggles and my hat. I'm going, I've got to get in that. What I actually have to, and you look down and you can see it's a bit murky and silty. And it does take, it does take courage. It does take a little bit of practice, of self-confidence, of self-belief to get into the water. But once you do, it is absolutely stunning. It's absolutely amazing. It is simply just a great experience as you build up your confidence and you can calm yourself down. It's something that honestly that I can't recommend enough. Even if you aren't a triathlete, even if you have no interest in triathlon, just getting into the water. I'm not talking about just getting up to your knees in the sea and having a splash around, but just getting sort of floating on your back, being calm in a non-crowded space. Fantastic. And then you can start to swim hard in the open water. You build up your distance. You start doing intervals in the open water. And before you know it, you will be swimming alongside dozens of other people with arms and legs swimming, all heading towards these same buoys, feeling alive. And triathlon, it makes you feel alive. There is nothing quite like it for just getting all of the hormones going. You know, I'm not going to say it will solve your depression. I'm not going to say that it's going to solve this, but any problem, I'm not going to say, oh, this is the answer. But if you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling unmotivated, if you don't know what to do with your life, triathlon, it just, there is nothing that comes close, you know? Obviously, it's amazing having, you know, a wonderful family, partner, a great job that's rewarding. But as far as life satisfaction goes, just do triathlon. It is, I can't put into words just how good it is. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about how much I enjoy it. And you get to the point where you're doing all this swimming in the open water and your confidence is just brimming, it's just building, and you start to feel like a badass. You know, if you can go out there and you can swim for 2.5 miles for your Ironman event in the cold open water, most people could never dream of doing that. So the swim for me, it is what makes the sport special. Now, I love cycling and I love the running, but the swim is just what makes triathlon different. It's just what makes triathlon special, okay? And a lot of people get very frustrated with the swim. One of my goals as a coach, a professional triathlon coach, is to get more people enjoying the swim. And that can be really hard sometimes, but it is definitely worth sticking with until you can get to a level that you're happy with. Going to move on to the bike now because I didn't realise I've already spent about sort of half an hour and we've only just got to the end of the swim. The bike, what I love about the bike is the freedom, the ability to explore. It is the bikes, it's the tech, it is the clothing, it's the culture, it's everything that comes with that. I've got a time trial bike for riding really fast on race day. I've got a road bike for when I'm training and I'm not on my TT bike, or when I go out with my mum because she's also a cyclist. I managed to get her into it. I've got a gravel bike for doing off-road riding. There's a lot of there's a lot of scope, and additionally, when you are on a road bike, you can travel really long distances without using a huge amount of energy. Where I am at the moment, go, oh, you know what? I could cycle to Wales and cycle back. Or I could cycle to Oxford. There's a huge variety of places that I could choose to cycle to as a bit of a challenge. There are so many events out there, cycle sportives, not races where you're in a bunch with dozens of other people, where you're just out for a ride, following a marked route for 100 miles or so. And for some people, that in itself is an incredible achievement. You know, forget about the swimming, forget about the running, cycling 100 miles, like wow. Like a lot of people don't like to drive that far. But what is it that's stopping you from cycling 100 miles? Chances are the only thing that's in the way is you. It's sort of a lack of self-belief. It's not for me. You know, okay, there could be people, if somebody has just had a young child, they don't have the time to get out to do the training. But most of us, if we really got ruthless, if we just got up a bit, if we went to bed early on the weekends, got up a little bit earlier on the Saturday or the Sunday morning, because it was that important to us to do this, there's a huge amount that we can do. Cycling as well, it's a very social sport, more so than swimming, because you can join a cycling club or cycle with a group, just your friend or your mum like I do. Go out and you just have a chat while you're riding along side by side. You know, obviously keeping aware of the road conditions, but most road cyclists tend to stick to the quieter road, so it's not so much of an issue. And then you go to a cafe, get yourself coffee and a sticky bun, and it's just so civilized. It's so nice to go out and to enjoy this the wonderful world that we live in from a completely different perspective. Now, I appreciate that in some parts of the world it's maybe not safe to go out cycling on the roads, and you know, I totally get that. I'm very privileged. I'm white, British, middle class, you know, and for me, I've got all this fantastic scenery on my doorstep. It's not for everyone riding outside all the time, but if cycling outside isn't really possible for you, you can do so much with your indoor training these days. In fact, a lot of professional athletes do a really big chunk of their training on the indoor trainer. I'm just nodding over there as if you can see my indoor trainer, which you can't. But you take the rear wheel off your bike, you stick it onto this machine, and you can ride indoors. Okay. Now, in days gone by, this was really, really soul-crushingly boring. Nowadays, they have lots of software out there where you can ride in a virtual world. The trainer will change the resistance for you as you ride. So it will get harder when you hit a virtual hill, so you have to get out of the saddle and push your way up the hill. There are virtual races that you can enter. There are routes that you can try and tick off, I'm going to finish all the routes. There is an enormous amount that you can do. And I cannot, recommend indoor training enough. You don't have to worry about traffic. You can ride hard intervals. And it can be quite social. There are like little groups online that you can join up and sort of create friends with, sort of make friends in. Indoor cycling in itself can be a really sort of engaging, fun way to keep fit. Obviously, no replacement for riding outside, in my humble opinion. But I know that, I've worked with athletes who've been in sort of India, Syria, different areas of the world like that. And it has been very difficult for them to get out. I can't just say, oh, you know what, let's do it, let's get out. And, just go out and do it. It's not always that easy. But indoor cycling, huge amount of possibility there. But for your, for those cyclists, or equally, some people live in some areas of the US where there is no real infrastructure for bikes, and road users are very intolerant of cyclists as well. But cycling is honestly the sense of freedom that you get, the fact that you're not paying for petrol. I mean, you are paying for food to fuel your body, but you're not putting wear and tear on your car. And you go and you can visit all of these places that you'd never normally be able to visit. You can cycle into sort of a town centre somewhere, lock your bike up, go grab what it is that you need. No paying for parking. I used to love when I lived in London. Get my bike, lived in Wimbledon, cycle into central London, lock it up, have a day in central London, go to the museums or do whatever it was that I was going to do, then get on the bike, cycle home. It's free. You really do feel like you're beating the system, like you're cheating the system. I do enjoy the tech. I know some people find it very frustrating, but for me, sort of the latest group sets and the way that you get upgrades for your bike, I really do get a bit of a kick out of. I'm not as bad as some people who sort of will drop silly money on wheels and upgrades that they really don't need. But it is nice, get me new tyres, that'll make me faster, upgrade my group set, that'll make me faster. And, you can slowly sort of over time, as you invest a bit more money into it, really improve your rig, get the aero bars, improve your bike fit, get into a more aggressive position or aero position or just a more comfortable position, get yourself nicer shoes, get yourself a cycling kit that is sort of that you like, that's inspires you to get out there and ride. It's great. You're also sort of developing your bike handling skills, how fast you can go around corners, riding in the rain, riding in a group, riding up hills. There is so much that you can achieve when you're on a bike. So many skills that you can learn, as well as the obvious, like changing a puncture, a drop chain, all of this. It really is a sort of a sphere where you can expand into really easily. And you can understand how people can get really sort of drawn into it and a little bit obsessive. Speaking of such things, I know I have heard of people, you see it online, sort of people complain about their, it's normally wives complaining about husbands, but not exclusively so, about how they spend all the time out on their bike or doing this triathlon. And look, there has to be a balance. If you know that your wife or husband is struggling at home and you go out and you leave them because you want to go and play on your bike all day with your friends, and you leave them at home with the kids and all the housework, that's not fair. That's not on. That is going to end up with some resentment. But sometimes, some people just sort of end up with a resentment because their other half isn't spending every waking moment with them. And again, this isn't an episode talking about relationships, but I think that, it's, as long as you're in communication with your partner or other people in your life as to what is an acceptable time to go out and ride for. Okay, well, if I leave at 5 and get back for 8, and I can do this and that. You know, again, like these conversations are really important in helping avoid any kind of potential acrimony. When you're swimming, it's rare that you'll be out of the house for much more than 2 hours at a time. Maybe if you've got to drive somewhere to an open water venue, doing an Ironman race simulation swim and driving back, okay, that may be the best part of the morning. But generally speaking, it's the long cycle rides that can create, you know, a little bit of friction there. But communication is absolutely key when trying to work out what it is that you can do. And honestly, I believe personally, maybe a bit biased, that everyone's partner should be supportive of their partner trying to become a better person. You know, not simply being that same person that they were when they met them. But that's a story for not even another episode of this. You know, there'd be some, I don't know, you'd probably find some YouTube channel on relationships. I'm sure there are plenty. Yeah, for the most part, you know, it's the sort of the sense of accomplishment that you can get for going out on your bike for a long ride, and I read this far, and seeing kind of, you know, other people's reactions to, oh yes, you know, oh yeah, I just went out on the weekend. Oh, where did you go? And you tell them somewhere that's kind of 60-70 miles away, and their jaw drops, and you go, oh well, you know, it was a nice ride out, had a really nice day. And I guess that's something that comes with all exercise, but definitely triathlon. It's that kind of just like that immediate kind of respect that you get from people. You okay down there? Am I boring you? My greyhound doing a horse impression over there. You know, there's just so much achievement that you can find, and so much enjoyment. There's always new routes to discover, new places to go, cycle out into the middle of nowhere, get a train back. It really does get those like juices flowing of like exploring the world and seeing, you know, what it has to offer. And that's what I really like about cycling. Trying to wrap things up because I've only got 15 minutes left. Running. So running, really, for me, what I like about running is the fact that it's the purest of the sports. You know, swimming, there is a real technique element to it, and people who swam when they were younger do have a definite advantage. With cycling, there is something of an arms race, financially, technology-wise as well. You know, somebody who is on a super light, super aero triathlon bike with electronic gears and deep section wheels is going to be a different postcode. Someone in a bog standard road bike they got for 500 quid and with all stock parts. You know, it's no matter how hard that person tries on that road bike, they're really going to struggle to get close to that other cyclist, assuming that other cyclist is, of course, doing the training. When I had my £500 special bike, when I started the sport, I flew past loads of people on those bikes because I was doing the hard training and they weren't. Okay, you know, it could be that they were a bit older than me, not looking sort of to shame them or anything, but you know, like it really is all about the legs rather than the equipment. But running, it's just a pure test of fitness. It is very primal in some ways. I mean, the way sort of the new shoe technology is sort of taken away from that a little bit, but it really is okay. So you know, you could have had a fantastic swim technique. You could have had a background growing up in the water as a child. That's great. I'm happy for you. And you could have, you know, you could throw a load of money at bikes, okay, and really spend a lot of time on the bike and get super aero, have all the accessories and throw money at the bike to get speed. When it comes to the run, apart from getting yourself a pair of super shoes, there's not a huge amount that you can do, except just get fitter. Obviously, there are different elements to that. If somebody has a much higher body fat percentage, they will struggle more on the run. But that in itself, you know, I never want to directly point the finger, but that definitely comes under the umbrella of general kind of health, fitness, well-being that we're looking to develop. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone should lose weight, but obviously if somebody could visibly, you know, they're visibly kind of 20+% body fat, they are going to struggle on the run relative to someone like myself because they're simply having to pull more weight around them. But it is, if we were to look at a sort of a total view of all those three sports, which is the purest test of fitness, yeah, you know what? It's going to be running. And it's where people who have, they say bike for show, run for dough, because the run is where a lot of triathlons tend to be won and lost. It's all about, you're deep into the race by the time you start the run. It's just hanging on. It is just doing what you can to keep going, to keep moving, to not stop. And I love the simplicity of the run and the run training. It's, get out, time on the feet, absolutely, as well as the hill reps, the sprints, the hard work. There's just something is so kind of, romantic's the wrong word, but there's something it's just so simple, so sort of primal, I guess, about running fast and seeing that improvement over time. Now, unfortunately, running is the sport where we are most prone to injury as triathletes. But that doesn't mean that, that we should shy away from it. Absolutely not. As long as we include a strength program in there, we really are going to be setting ourselves up well to help avoid any, reduce the chances of us getting injured. As long as we're careful with our volume and the intensity that we're doing as well. And it can be very addicting, running. And a lot of people are like pure runners. They take themselves very seriously. They take their 5K time, their half marathon time, their marathon time incredibly seriously. For them, spending a whole year training for a marathon, well, not a whole year for one marathon, but like a year's training to then to go to the next marathon and take a minute off of their time could well be worth it to them. They really are sort of trying to sort of reduce the amount of controllables and to really focus on the details, the nitty gritty, the bits that, sort of the bits they can control, really. Triathletes, we don't tend to focus on personal bests nearly as much as runners do, because I guess runners, like a flat 5K is a flat 5K. Or marathon for that matter, and that a lot of runners will tend to do the same race each year. Lots of races tend to repeat year on year, whereas in triathlon there's such a difference between bike courses and run courses and swim conditions and the like that it's very hard to compare yourself year to year. Yeah, it's nice to see an improvement. Obviously, if you took 20 minutes off the time you last did the race, yeah, that's obviously a really good sign of improvement. If you're 5 minutes slower, that could just be in the weather conditions. But with triathlon, there's a bit less pressure on you to just chase these numbers and make it all about your ranking on Power of 10 or any other website. It's less about your Strava times, and it's more about just that building that durability, building that resilience, and be able to run strong off of the bike. And yeah, I love the way that my lungs and my legs burn during a hard effort, and I'm absolutely on that limit. And again, just like the endorphins you get flooding your body from fast running, it's something your body wants to do. Your body really wants to run, because as a species, we were actually sort of born to run. There's something very rewarding about that. And again, as you do see your times come down, because as a triathlete, you can, of course, do all of these timed runs as well. You can do your road 10Ks, you can do your half marathons. I've done marathons in the past. And you go out and you can see your time come down, and that's really rewarding. But also there's less pressure on your run time being the be all and end all, because instead of trying to become a better swimmer, a better cyclist, a better runner, you're trying to become a better triathlete, trying to pace it better, be a more well-rounded athlete, be a more well-rounded individual, dare I say. And yeah, I guess there's not a huge amount else to say about the run, really, is there? Other than just kind of how simple it is, how enjoyable it can be. Now, a lot of people, they really struggle with running when they start out, get out of breath really quickly, they find it really hard on the legs. I mean, the key there is just to slow down. It's to knock it back and to think about it less as being gotta run, like you would if you were, say, a football player or someone like that. And it's much more about, okay, let's slow it down, let's look to run for an hour non-stop. And, just like almost sort of jogging, think about it. There's no shame in that. Just going out at an easy pace, we can have a conversation with someone. That is how you become a better runner, because by running slower, you can spend more time running without fatigue, which will make you a faster runner. Yes, you do need to include the hard runs as well, but you need to sort of avoid the trap of just running comfortably hard all the time without actually really getting much faster at all. Moving on, because I'm trying to wrap things up, strength training. Most modern triathletes will strength train. And I think this is really important because it is a fantastic way to become just a better human being, better well-rounded, more mobile, more flexible, stronger, more useful, more resilient to injury, less likely to develop osteoporosis as we age. For women of a certain age, it's very important as well, because they can, women in towards their 50s and onwards, they really are at risk of reduced bone density and injuries that come with that. And it helps us ensure that we're much less likely to fall over when we're older, and if we do, we'll be much more likely to be able to get ourselves back up off the floor. It really is an investment in your health, and it will really dramatically slow the rate at which you age. And don't get me wrong, strength training can be intimidating, which is why I've got a strength training for triathletes course. I'll drop that down in the description, which can kind of help introduce you to the world of strength and conditioning, but without it derailing your swim, bike and run training. But there is just a lot to be said for, getting into the gym, getting stronger, getting faster as a result, and being a better rounded person who just feels better about themselves, feels more confident. Few things make you feel better than being able to put a big weight on your back, be able to squat it, or to deadlift something, to lunge. It really does make you feel good about your body and what it can actually achieve. And the final part is nutrition. Okay, it is not, I guess it's not only. You have the element of learning how to fuel your body during a race, which is really critical, especially when we get to the 70.3 and Ironman distance. About how many calories we should be having, how we should take those calories, what it's going to look like. Super critical, but also what it is that we eat on a day-to-day basis. As a triathlete, as you start doing training, you are going to be feeling much more in the way of sort of cravings for healthier foods. The idea of a McDonald's or Domino's pizza is not going to be nearly as appealing, because your body is going to be saying, look, I need protein, I need minerals, I need vitamins, I need good quality food. It's not as tempting to swing by the drive-thru to pick something up. You will start to crave things that are a little bit healthier, which will help you in all walks of life, really. So that's I say whistle stop. It's been 51 minutes so far. So I want to sort of wrap this up into a package at the end, which is that, what's great about triathlon is that you don't have to be super intense to enjoy it. It can be whatever you want to be. It has a huge amount of variety in the training, okay? Between swim, cycle, run, strength, we've got 4 different disciplines that we can train, okay? If you are just running, if you're just lifting in the gym, you can get very sort of narrow-minded and focused, almost obsessive a little bit about it. This helps spread it out. And yes, there will be sessions and disciplines that you enjoy more than others. That's completely normal. But it is just having that variety as well. If you pick up a running injury, okay, most triathletes will pick up a running injury at some point. Rather than a runner who's injured and suddenly their world just disappears out from underneath them, they don't know what to do with themselves. Okay, we've got a running injury, that sucks. Can we swim? Probably. Can we bike? Hopefully. Can we go to the gym and lift? Almost definitely. There are things that we can do to keep ourselves going, to keep ourselves entertained. There are endless possibilities with races, new races appearing each year across the world, different distances, different disciplines. The friends that we can make in the world of triathlon, as well as swimming, cycling and running, can make it a really sociable sport. It does depend on your goals a little bit. If you want to focus on longer distance stuff and you want to be getting in regular 4, 5, 6 hour rides, a specific intensity, you're probably not going to want to turn up to local group ride. But if you just want to get involved in some shorter triathlon, it doesn't matter a huge amount. You know, you can go along, ride with a cycling club, have a go on the hills. You know, you may want to include some structured training on your own. You may not. It's easy to think of triathletes as being super fit, intimidating people. But 9 times out of 10, that's not really the case. So many triathletes are just there for a bit of a giggle and a bit of a laugh. And there are a lot of triathletes who pride themselves on not taking it very seriously. You know, they're not super fast, but they keep doing the training. They love it. Every year they turn up, they do their Ironman events, all their shorter events, whatever it is that they do. And they're not trying to win. They're not trying to get on the podium. You know, they're just trying not to slow down a huge amount as they get older. And yeah, again, like for longevity, I'm struggling to think of a better sport that will keep you happier and healthier for longer than triathlon. Something else that's quite nice about triathlon, anyone can qualify for the World Championships. Now, you can't race in the pro race if you qualify for the World Championships, unless you do so well at the World Championships that you decide to turn pro. But you can, because it's done by age group, so that normally it's done in 5-year gaps. So you'll have those who are, I think it's 13 to 17, 18, I think it then goes to 25, 25 to 30, 35, 40, and it builds itself up like that. Again, varies on the regions a little bit. So you're competing against people of a similar age to you. You know, it's not a case of, oh, I came 1023rd, and you say, I came 6th in my age group. Next year, I'm going to aim to get on the podium. I'm going to really put the work in, and I'll go back to that race, and I want to get on the podium, because I think I can do it. Qualify for World Championship event if you do well enough at qualifying events, or you submit a time that's fast enough, and you can travel and you can represent your country. Get on a tri-suit, a race suit with your country's flag on it, and go and race under your country's banner and for your country. How many people can say they've raced for their country? Very few, okay? But this is something that if you get into triathlon, you can do. It doesn't even have to be triathlon. British Triathlon, you can qualify for aquathlon, for duathlon, for aquabike, for middle distance, for long distance, okay? There is a huge amount of possibility out there for you to go and put on a tri-suit and go and represent your country. And again, that's another thing that I really love about triathlon. It's just great fun, and there are plenty of people who will really throw themselves at the sport and they would achieve a huge amount in a short space of time. I'm much more relaxed about, you know, my triathlon accomplishments. The last couple of years, I haven't done so much. I've been focused more on the business, more on my coaching. But I will go out there, I will qualify for these events, I will really apply myself when my circumstances are a bit different. But if you do go and you do throw yourself at it and you achieve everything you wanted to achieve, I know people who've started triathlon and within 3-4 years they've qualified for the Ironman World Championships. And they complete the Ironman World Championship and they're kind of, well, you know, do I really have it in me to go again? What else is there left to achieve? But they will then still keep running. Cycling, normally the two that are keeping the life. Swimming, not so much. But even if triathlon is only a sort of an episode, a chapter of your life, okay, it can still take you on and encourage you to become just healthier, more active, more athletic in the long run. Right, there we go. That has taken me just under an hour. I do need to head out, so I have to love you and leave you. Thank you for listening to me sort of wax lyrical about triathlon. I really, really hope you're at least considering doing a triathlon after leaving this, watching this. Now, I have my own triathlon coaching business. It is, you know, I have Greyhound Fitness where I help sort of swimming, cycling, running, strength, weight loss, but really triathlon is where my heart is. And I have created this phase on triathlon, all these different programs, resources, bespoke coaching to help people get started. Now, I am still building this business. I decided to focus a bit less on the bespoke stuff and do more in the way of education and courses and that around about a year ago. And so I'm still building things up. I haven't got all the resources on there that I'd like, but please have a look at phaisontriathlon.com. The link will be down in the show notes. Thank you once again for listening. Hope you enjoy yourselves. And if you've got any questions about triathlon, just drop me an email to simon@phaisontriathlon.com and stick it down in the description, or leave a comment on this video. Cheers, guys.